Hey, what's up creators? Today, we're going to be showing you how we can build user interface elements like heads-up displays, menus, and more for virtual reality in Unreal Engine. Hey there, my name's Luke, and in this video, we're going to be breaking down exactly how we can build user interface elements in Unreal Engine. It's a bit of a tricky subject as Unreal Engine's UI system is traditionally built for 2D. But throughout this video, we're going to be breaking down the process step by step. We're going to show you how we can set up our XR pawn so that way it can actually interact with user interface elements. We're going to introduce you to Unreal Motion Graphics, which is UMG, which is Unreal's method of creating these widget blueprints. We're then going to show you how you can import custom graphics and then even build a menu of your own. And also, because this is VR and it's fun, we're going to be showing you how we can bring that user interface and place it into your scene in 3D. It's a really exciting session and I can't wait to jump into it. Let's kick off with a UMG intro. Okay, so just hopping into Unreal Engine for a second then, let's give you a very quick introduction to UMG, which is Unreal Motion Graphics. This is all going to be contained within our widget blueprints. That being said, let's go ahead and create one. We're going to go to our content drawer, and then I'm just going to go to my content folder, and I'm just going to make a brand new folder called VR Demo, just so I can have everything in one place. But what I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to create a widget blueprint so you can see how UMG is going to work. I'm going to right click in the empty space, go to user interface, and then I'm going to be adding a widget blueprint. Use that common type user widget, and I'm going to give this a name WBP underscore test widget. WBP just being widget blueprint, that's the naming convention that I'm using. I'm going to go ahead and double click on this to open it up. And that's where we are now inside of UMG. You have got a few things inside of here. The first thing that we've got is our design view. The design view we can tab in and out of. We can go to the design view being where you're going to do all of the graphic design, so placing the location of your buttons, aligning things, adding text, everything visual. Then you've got this graph view, which is where we're going to be able to take those components that we set up in our design view and start adding code to them. For now though, we're going to focus on this design view. We've got our viewport in the middle here, which we can scroll in and out of to zoom in and out. And then we can hold down right mouse button to click and pan around. We've also got the library in the top left-hand corner. The library is going to contain all of the components that are going to make up your user interface. So things like your buttons or your text or your progress bars or your images, you're going to be able to access all of this in your library. So with all of that being said, it's time to take a look at this in action. Let's jump back into Unreal, add a canvas panel and start putting components inside of here. So now that we're back inside of Unreal Engine, I'm going to go up to my library tab and I'm going to search for a canvas panel. And I'm going to just drag and drop this into the scene. This canvas panel is going to do exactly as it says on the tin. It's just a blank canvas we can start putting objects onto. We're not really going to customize this at the moment. But what I can do now is inside of my library, I can start searching for things under common, like buttons, and I can drag and drop them into my scene and resize them. I can do the same thing with progress bars, and I can do the same thing with text and sliders. There is so much in here for you to explore. But in terms of customizing these components that we've added, we're going to be doing that using the details panel. So let's say you want to change the text here. I'm going to have this text say Tinkr Academy. So I've just gone to the details panel, gone to the content, and I've changed the text. In the very same place, I can change anything about this, like the font, and I can change the size. I could change the color and opacity. With each of these components, you've just got to take the time to understand what each of the details are. And of course, as you go through more of my videos, you're going to be able to see all of these in action and get to know them. Okay, now that we're a little bit familiar with Unreal Motion Graphics, let's show you how we can actually take those UMG components that we've got and bring them into the scene. So what we're going to do is take one of the pistols and we're going to make a widget blueprint for it and then just attach the two together so that way you can see just how quickly we can start building 3D components. So inside of Unreal Engine, what I'm going to do is create another widget blueprint, just something very, very simple that I can put on the side of my pistol that I've got on the table. So I'm going to right click in the empty space here again, go to user interface, and I'm going to add a widget blueprint. Again, using that common user widget class, and I'm going to give this a name WBP_pistol. And what I'm going to do inside of here again, just like before, I'm going to add a canvas panel. That canvas panel is just giving me something, a blank canvas where I can work. And with that done, what I'm going to do now is simply take a piece of text and I'm just going to put a number on it, almost like it's an ammo counter. It's not actually going to be the ammo the gun has, as we don't have a system for that, but it's more showing you, once you get into that blueprint side of things, this is how it's done. So what I'm going to do is take a piece of text. So I'm going to go to my library, top left-hand corner, search for text, and I'm going to add a text block in. Now, when it comes to actually putting these into 3D space, I would definitely recommend that you put these components sort of in the top left-hand corner rather than centered or anywhere like that. So I'm just going to put a text block in there, 2 text blocks even. So I'm going to have one text block that says, let's say 99, and it's going to be nice and big, and it's going to be orange because we like orange. And then I'm going to have another piece of text underneath this, which just simply says ammo. Like I said, just trying to simulate like an ammo counter for our pistol. And again, I'm just changing the size of this until it works. I'm going to make this all capitalized and just adjusting it until it looks about right. So now I have got my fake ammo counter. Let's go ahead and compile this, save it, and take a look at now how we can actually put it into our scene. So putting it into our scene, or rather attaching it to our pistol, all we've got to do is put it into a blueprint and attach it. Because the pistol is a blueprint already, we just have to add a widget component inside of there. Let's do this. So right click on the pistol in your scene, browse to the asset to find it in your content browser. Then we are going to open it up, go to our viewport, and we're going to find our pistol. And then inside of here, what we're going to do is in the components panel in the top left-hand corner, we're simply going to add a widget component. And what that's going to do is just give us a plane that we can project a user interface widget blueprint onto. So you can see it has added this and it's already attached to the pistol. So what we're going to do with the widget selected, we're going to scroll down until we find our user interface tab. Make sure we're using world space because we want it to be in the world. And then the widget class, we are going to choose our created WBP_pistol, and we're going to drop it in. And you can see just like that, now we've got our ammo counter in there. But of course, what we need to do is just rotate it. And then we are going to scale it as well, so it fits a little bit better. If you don't want to use the scale tool there, you can do it in here too. So I'm going to set this to 0.01, 0.01. And let's take a look at this. Then if I move it up, turn off my snapping if I need to. And I'm just going to drop it into place. So it's actually on the back of the pistol itself, just like that. And then once I'm ready with this, I can compile and save. If it's cut off any of your UI, one thing I will say is in this user interface tab, make sure you adjust that draw size until it fits. But for now, I'm ready to compile, save, and test it. We are back inside of VR. Let's just go over to this table and check out our guns. So I can see on the table there, it says 99 ammo on the back. And if I reach out and pick it up, it says 99 ammo, and I can begin shooting it just like this. And no matter where the guns go, you can see we have got that ammo counter, and it's looking perfect. Okay, so that's the first of our setups complete. We now know a little bit about how we can use UMG, but we also know how we can take those components and place them in our scene in 3D. The possibilities with this are absolutely endless. You could attach it to your gun, you could place it in front of the player, you could attach it to their wrists, absolutely anything. What I want to do now, though, is start showing you how we can set up a menu, but more importantly, I'm going to show you how we can import custom graphics into UMG, and then we'll get into the menu. Let's do it. Inside of Unreal Engine, what I have is an image for a background for a menu, and then also an image for a button as well. There's nothing particularly special about these are just PNGs. Let's import them into Unreal and then import them into UMG. So go to your content drawer, just like before, go to our VR demo folder, and what I'm going to do to import these, I'm just going to find them on my computer, select them both, and then drag and drop them into the content drawer. And you can see just like that, they're now in there and they're ready for us to use. So let's create a brand new widget blueprint for our menu. Right click, go to widget blueprint, and then use that common class, WBP underscore Tinkr menu. And then we're going to open it up. So inside of here, we're going to use that canvas panel again. And then what we're going to do this time is we're going to be using an image. I'm going to have one image for my background. So let's do that. So I'm going to scale it up to fit. But then to actually put our background onto this with our image selected, we're going to go to brush, go to image, and then we are going to choose back. That's the name of my graphic that I imported. If it's got a different name for you, you're going to use that. But I'm going to bring this in, and you can see with this, I can then scale it up until it looks right. So for me, this looks good. And then the next thing that I'm going to do is bring in two buttons. Just going to place one button there, set the style for the normal on this button to be my UI underscore button image. And then what I can do with this is start changing things like setting my tints back to 1, 1, and 1, so it's normal. I could put that image into the hovered state as well. So I'm just going to put that into the hovered and also the pressed as well, just like that. And then again, what I'm doing here is I'm just going to make sure it's exactly where I want it. So about here, I think will do. And I'm also going to make sure that I render this or draw this as an image so it doesn't have any kind of background or border or anything like that. And then, of course, I could take a text block and I could just drag it into my button just like this. Okay, so once you've then got your button or your images or anything like that, I've got my text in here, and I'm just going to make my text be a bit of a dark brown, just like this, so it blends in. And I'm going to have the text for this say button 1 or hello world even. And then if I want to use that again, I can do the same thing. I can duplicate my button by just going to the hierarchy down here and then duplicate that button. And you can see it's also duplicated the children, such as the text. But again, I can just place this where it needs to be, click on the text and change that. And I'm going to have this say quit, which is just going to quit the app for us. So there we have it. Now you can start to see the process of importing your graphics into Unreal. So we saw that we imported some graphics, we took it into UMG, and then we even used that for buttons as well. It's now time for us to move on to the next section of the video, which is going to be all around taking this, putting it into the scene, and making those buttons interactive so when you press them, we can trigger code. So let's quickly put this in the scene, and then we will do all of the interaction afterwards. So back into Unreal, what I'm going to do is just minimize this, and then I'm going to go to my content drawer. Inside of here, I'm going to create a brand new blueprint so that I have access to one of those widget components. so I can put this in my scene. So right click in the empty space, add a blueprint class of the type actor, and I'm just going to give this a name, BP underscore Tinkr menu. And then I'm going to double click on this to open it up. Go to components in the top left-hand corner, and then with this, I'm going to search for that all-important widget component. From here, I can scroll down, just like before, go to user interface, and I can set the widget class to our Tinkr menu. And you can see just like that, we now have our menu in here, and I can center it and place it however we need to. Couple of things that we're going to do with this, most importantly, is just adjust the collision so that we know it can be used for VR interaction. So we're going to go over to our collision presets. It's currently set to our UI preset, but this does not mean it's going to work in VR. We need to set the custom collision type, and then the one that you want is make sure that your 3D widget is set to block. That way, it does not have any way for the pointer to go through it. It knows the pointer is right there. Let's hit compile, minimize this, and then take this newly created blueprint and put it into the scene. Notice it's only one-sided, but that's okay. We're just going to rotate this and turn it around. And then what we're going to do is just scale it up and put it into place just like this. And what I'll probably do is put it in the dark here. So that way it's just away from everything else. And now we've got our menu in our level. Let's test it out. Okay, so back inside of VR here, and what I can do now is teleport, go inside, and I can see my menu. It is looking fantastic. Okay, perfect. We've got our menu with custom graphics. It's got buttons in there. It's got collision. And now this is where the important stuff comes in. We need to set up our XR pawn so that way we can have lines that come out of the controller or the hands so we can see what we're aiming at. But then we need to set it up so you can actually click those buttons and start triggering blueprints. This bit is a little bit complicated, so make sure that you don't miss anything. If you feel like you do, just feel free to just pause the video, go back, just watch it. But let's jump straight into it. Let's go into Unreal. So inside of Unreal Engine, what we need to do is open up our player blueprint. We can find this by going to Window in the top left-hand corner, World Settings, and then inside of here, we can see we've got our game mode. In our selected game mode, we can expand that and we can see our default pawn class. For me, because I'm using Unreal Engine 5.7, it says BP underscore XR pawn. Press the folder icon to browse to this, which is just going to open it up in our content drawer. Double click on this to open it up. Then, with that done, you can see all of the components for our player blueprint. Most importantly though, we've got the motion controller for the left hand and the right hand. What we're going to do with this is take the widget interaction component. This is the component which actually simulates a line out from the hand. And I'm going to select both of these. So control and left click the first one and then the second one. But then what I'm going to do is under debugging with these selected in the details panel, I'm going to set show debug to true. Then under advanced, there should be underneath interaction, I'm going to set both of these to have the virtual user index 0 so we can use both of them. And I'm also going to change my interaction distance to 2000, which is just going to allow us to be able to reach with that interaction nice and far. Let's go ahead and compile, save, and test this out to see how it looks. Okay, we are back inside of VR again, and you can see I have got these lovely debug lines. And I'm sure when you're building your apps, your games, you'll replace that with something that looks a bit better. But if I go over to my menu, just in here, you can see now I've got my buttons and I can actually hover over these. We know they're almost ready to be interacted with. Now, bear in mind the hover state has got a border on it. I'll explain that in just a second. But if you do any kind of UMG hover effects or anything like that, these will all work, but our widget interaction component is working. So let's quickly fix that border and then we'll jump into actually triggering these. So back inside of the content drawer, I've just gone to my VR demo folder. And in here, I'm just going to open up my blueprint for my Tinkr menu. The reason we are getting that border when we hover on these is the hover image under each of these buttons is set to be a rounded box rather than an image. So I'm just going to go ahead and change that on both of these. Then what I'm also going to do, just for good measure on these, I'm going to make sure that all of them, the pressed, the hovered, the normal, it's all set to image rather than a rounded box. Then for my hovered state, I'm just going to go ahead and add a slight tint, just making it slightly darker like this. And I'm going to press OK. I'm going to copy that value so I can then also do the same thing to the bottom one as well. And I'm going to press OK. Let's just compile, save, and test this and just make sure that's all good to go. So back inside of VR again, we've got our buttons, and when I hover over them, there's no weird border, and they've got the tint, and they are looking fantastic. So the next thing that we need to do now is we actually need to set up a bit of blueprint which is going to tell Unreal Engine when you press those triggers on the controller to actually click our buttons, almost as if you're using the mouse. Reason for that is UMG is really very much set up for 2D experiences like PC. If you want it to do VR, you can, but we've just got to do some of those inputs ourselves. They're really straightforward. We're going to do it together. Let's do it. So inside of Unreal Engine, what we're going to do is, first things first, set up some input actions. Input actions, for those of you that don't know, are just essentially triggers. So just things that the player can do, which then we can use Unreal Engine to tell it to do something else. So what I'm going to do is right click in the empty space, go to input, and then input action. And I'm going to give this the name IA underscore trigger left. And then I'm going to double click on this to open it up. And then in the action description here, I'm just going to give this the name trigger left interaction. And then I'm also going to set the trigger to be a pressed trigger. And I'm going to save that. So that's the left trigger setup. Let's minimize that and do the same thing for the right. So right click, input, input action, and give it the name IA underscore trigger right. Open it up, trigger right interaction. And we're going to set the trigger to be a pressed. There's lots of settings in here. I'm not going to explain them all for now. If you would like to see a full video on the enhanced input action mapping system, let me know in the comments down below. But with these set up, what we can do now is we can actually put it into the context, put some bindings onto those, and then tell it to simulate that click. Let's do it together. So back to our XR pawn. And then inside of this, we're going to double click, go to our event graph, and what we want to find is the input mapping context. That is essentially Unreal Engine's context or map of all of the active input actions and their triggers. So we've already got one active, so instead of making a new one, we're just going to add our content to this. To find it, generally you can just go to your VR character, your player blueprint, go to begin play, follow it along, and you will find something like this where it says add mapping context. That just takes the context and makes it active. And you can see here the mapping context is IMC underscore default. Press the magnifying glass to browse to that, and then double click on it to open it up. And you can see inside of here, under default key mappings, there is lots of mappings in here, but we're going to add ours for the trigger now. So I'm going to add two of these, or I can only do one at a time rather. First one is IA underscore trigger left. We're going to expand this and we're going to set the key to be our Oculus Touch. And then the one that we are after is our trigger right. Let me see if I can find it. Touch left trigger. Perfect. And then I'm going to add one more. IA underscore trigger right. Expand it. Oculus Touch right underscore trigger. So now Unreal Engine knows when you use the left trigger, activate this enhanced input action, and when you use the right trigger, use this one. Time for us to tie some code to this. Go into our BP underscore exile pawn, and then what we're going to do is we're going to find our left one. So trigger left. So this is just once they have triggered that input action. We are essentially going to take our widget interaction, get a reference to it, and we are going to do press key. Or rather, we're going to do press pointer key. And we're going to use the left mouse button. So what's happening is when you press that trigger, it's going to simulate a press of the pointer key, left mouse button, on that left widget component. Afterwards, I'm going to do press or release key. And then with that, same thing, left mouse button. Now, some of you may have seen that there is a press and release key. I found that that doesn't always work. So I'm just doing it this way. I would recommend you do the same thing. So we've simulated our left click from the left trigger. Let's do the same thing from the right. So trigger right, and again, it's the IA underscore. And then take our widget interaction right, get a reference to it, and then press pointer key. You could probably even just copy and paste these, just select them both, Control C, Control V, and just hook up the target just like this to both of these. Hit compile, and now our setup should be working, so that way we can start interacting with these buttons. Okay, that's it. That is the hard bit over. We should now be at a point where we can jump in and we can start interacting with these buttons. What we're going to do now is hop back to our widget blueprint, and we are going to just simply print a string when you press each of these to validate that all of them are working. So back inside of Unreal Engine, what we're going to do is go back to this folder of ours, VR demo, and we're going to open up our Tinkr menu. To make these buttons have code when you interact with them, we can use events. We can access these by scrolling down with the button selected, and you can see we can create an on-clicked event. This event is just going to trigger when someone clicks on it. So I'm going to add one of these by pressing the plus icon for the hello world. And then I'm going to drag out and do a print string that says, hello, Tinkr Academy. And then back to the design view at the top here, I'm going to go to my bottom button that says quit. And I'm going to do another on-clicked event, which simply says a print string which says quitting. So we know when we've pressed each of these. Let's compile, save, and test this out. Okay, so I'm back inside of VR, and now I've got my buttons here. They're looking exactly the same as before, but I can take my hello world text and I can click on this and it says hello Tinkr Academy. Same goes for quit. I can do the same thing. So just like that, we can see now how we can start using blueprints with our user interface elements in VR in Unreal Engine. So let's do some very simple blueprints here where we get the quit button to actually quit our application. And of course, if you know more blueprints, you've seen lots more of my content, you can do so much more, but let's just attach a little something to this before we wrap up. Go to our content drawer, go and open up that Tinkr menu, And instead of quitting, we are going to tell it to quit the game instead. And then compile, save, minimize, and play. Let's test this out. So back inside of VR again, let's test this out. Hello world button does the print string, and then the quit button is going to close this. It's just going to do whatever we have told it to do. And you saw there, it closed Unreal Engine for me. Or rather, it closed the VR preview. So that's everything that I wanted to show you for this video. Just as a recap, we have gone over a lot of content. It's been a long old half an hour, but there is so much more for you to learn in Unreal Motion graphics. But most importantly, we've introduced you to Unreal Motion graphics. We've shown you how you can import custom graphics. We can show you, or we have shown you rather, how you can take those UI elements and bring them into the world with the example that we did with the VR pistol. But then we showed you how we can set up our buttons and menus so they're interactive and they can run all of its code. The possibilities here truly are endless. There's so much more that you can do. If you want to learn a little bit more about UMG and Unreal Motion graphics, I definitely recommend that you check out my ultimate Unreal Engine VR course, which is on the way. The link for that is in the description down below. But for now, subscribe if you haven't done so already, and as always, stay awesome, keep creating.